Okay, here's an interesting factoid. Now, we've talked about Gobekli Tepe quite a few times here in the last 3 years, but quite a bit here recently too. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about it a bunch more as more and more shows up. For recently I did a video showing you that they have sacred geometry built into it. Looking at it here, you can kind of see the ideal, but this is just a diorama type thing that they've built. But each little thing that we find out about like this hopefully gives you a better scope of the way these people lived. And so you can see these pillars and you would start thinking things like, well, they were still stupid but they did these things, or they're still stupid but they did those things. Or you try to justify it because this is twice as old as anything that we found of any caliber like this. And so you have to justify it in some way, but when you find out they have astrotheology of some form showing the zodiac, and that they have pretty much the Sumerian zodiac of ancient times. Now, when I studied all this and I found out the Sumerians had the ancient zodiac and there was one in Dendera at Egypt and stuff, that was quite a revelation. And whenever you found out the Sumerians they even had this, they even had that. I mean, it was a revelation, and advanced maths and stuff. And you heard about all these things. Then they come out and they go, this tablet here has got trigonometry on it, and it's based on 6, 10, and 60s, and it's easier to work out if you work it on that math than our current modes or math, the problems that we use to, equations that we use to figure it out. And it's just incredible. And so here's a little look at, their diorama zoom. But what's kind of important is, I don't know, you might think of that as a toilet right off the bat, but this is actually a hollowed out rock. Polished surface and polished surface in it, and it has a residue that was in it, and they're trying to figure out what that residue is, but they find that 2 of these 5 enclosures have ones that are this size, and then they've got one that's a little bit bigger that they've found that's a whole trough. And by trough, I mean, that big ass cooler that you take around and stuff? Yeah, it's about like that. So you can think of this as kind of a Flintstone cooler kind of deal. But it had some rocks in it and stuff, and they got the rocks out, and there's this film all around on it, right? So they checked this film out, trying to see what it is, and sent it away conspicuously to Germany. And in doing so, they did a few tests on it here, and well, it started to show up organic compounds, so they run it through the gambit, and they all of a sudden started seeing some signatures that they're used to seeing. So they checked it for things like yeast and stuff, and bang, it just turned colors like that. So they ran through it, and hey, looks like they had beer. And no, it's not the beer that you're thinking of, and I can't show you the clip, but that's one of the scientists that they're dealing with that did the testing on it. But whenever they did the test, it shows up to be beer. So here they've got what looked like one of their dwellings or inside of tents that are near it that they were using are actually in the part itself. And you can see there's this recreation of what the people would probably look like, and handing beers out to go with their food that they've got. And caught him at the wrong moment. It doesn't look anything like the signature of our current beers. But one thing that was neat that I found out about ancient cultures is how far beer goes back. I mean, when I don't, who knows how long people have been drinking alcohol and doing these things. But when I was a kid, I thought it was, went back maybe a couple of 100 years. And then I found out, oh, it goes back a lot older than that. And then you come to find out, well, they didn't even talk about these civilizations, and they already got beer. In fact, the Sumerians, they found over 60 recipes for beer. Yeah, in a catalog for cooking foods and stuff. It was almost like, here's a recipe book, but it's all done on Flintstone slabs. Imagine that, right? And they've got all these different dishes they've cooked. And they had people make the beer up, and they had people make the food up and the beer up and everything, and let people try it. And one of the times they let people try it, they left it somewhat concentrated, and they were like, oh, okay, that's totally different, but yeah, okay, but, and yeah, that's all right, and kind of accepting of it. But first initial reaction was off, and that's because it's made out of rye and barley and wheat, and doesn't have hops in it really and stuff, and so it's not a hoppy, skunky type of beer like a lot of people are used to nowadays. And then they gave him another glass, and you could see through it and stuff, and it's got all this crap that's in it and everything, but it's still it's watered down, extremely bad. Like 1/3, and so it's like Coors. No, it's much worse than that. Watered down, but it's still got all this stuff in there, so it's kind of like gruel and something along that line. And these people would have had it and eating it in dinner and stuff. And in here, I thought it was neat. They had little carved out wooden cups for all the people. They aren't doing them out of stone yet or something, but they've got all this other stone crap around them and everything, and some well shaved people and things that go along with it and everything. And just like, okay, well, did they have obsidian blade shavers at this time, or what have they found? And just to me, it means a lot that not only was there people which apparently already had recipes for different beers and stuff in what we were saying whenever I was first studying as the first farmers. These people come out of nowhere like popcorn. And as you found out more and more, if they would have told you it all at once, you would have maybe realized a little more. But all of a sudden, they had farming and irrigation and advanced math and all this stuff, and they had beer. Oh, and they developed the clock and timing and everything, and we still base our 12 hours around it, or 60 hours a day and all this stuff as the Sumerians. But then, man, if you were to find out that it went back 1,000 years before that, it would be a mind blower. But to sit and find something that's showing roughly 3 times the age almost, way more than double the age, and they already have it going on. Now, nobody's done any tested to see if they had 3 different kinds. One's a light beer, one's a dark beer, and the other one's all, Guinness Stout and stuff or anything. No, nobody's tested that out. Or thought through the idea that maybe each person is making up batches and stuff, but whenever they have the communal thing, they throw it all together. Or do they go ahead and make a big batch? And they don't have pots at this time, but what they show here in this picture is a lava bowl that's been carved out with a pestle that's in it, and that's what they've been crunching the grain up with and cooking it. And they cook it and keep it right near the fire and keep cooking it, and somebody just sits and does this all the time so they can make up that much beer. And they sit and just accrue up beer over beer over beer over beer and keep it going and envelope it. I think it's pretty neat, and it shows you just one more step of how these ancient Caucasians herald civilization in different ways. But to think about something as complex as that, well, even before they supposedly had farming going on, because they're still trying to pull that, and what's the deal? Well, this is whenever they figured out farming. Well, whenever they figured out farming, was the reason they figured out farming because of beer? And then the fact of them liking beer, because water goes bad, people. Water goes bad. So all that's those old stories about they used to drink wine, even the kids drank it and everything, those are true. But they'd water it down real bad, and they weren't making it for alcohol strength in any way, shape, or form, but they were wanting it to be purified, and they could use that and heated up water and put a bunch of water in there over and over again. Say you have a big thing, you can put one bottle of wine in there and then 4 pots of water into the thing, and it's going to last for days and days, and it's going to taste like watered down Kool-Aid, but it's going to work. And they did the same type thing with a beer. Oh, another thing, the Sumerians, I should pop up a picture right now, but you probably have seen them. And some of the old cylinder seals and everything they've got them showing where they've got a big pot of beer and they've got 2 giant straws running down into it, and they're sitting there drinking the straws. So they're not, they're drinking just the beer and not getting the froth that floats up to the surface. It's believed these people might have just ate it all in one thing, like grog, and they put mead, and they put honey in it, they put meat in it, and things like that. So it's incredible to see how far back. And this, Gobekli Tepe is a game changer, but then when you see things like this, that in itself is just a game changer. It was a game changer in a way whenever they said, well, the Sumerians had a beer and a bunch of recipes. It was like, whoa, even though you knew all this other crap, it's still a game changer to see culinary things, and then, some type of chemistry and figuring stuff out and doing it. And, oh, yeah, they had it well figured out. Well, apparently they had it well figured out from way back when here. And is this the first people that invented beer? So next time you have a beer, maybe think about how many people have had a beer and how long this actually goes back. Way, way before recorded history. Like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy. On to the next one. Gobekli Tepe. Beer. Peace.